"Papa, why do you always stand by my window every single night with red clothes in your mouth?" That was what my younger brother, Ibuka, suddenly asked my father while we were still eating. Everybody just froze. The spoon in my mother's hand dropped back into her plate. I felt my body stiff, like I didn't even know how to move again. Ibuka said it like normal talk, like it was something small, but the whole parlor suddenly became heavy. My father just gave one small chuckle, the laugh was forced, and he waved his hand like it was nonsense. "Ibuka, it was a dream you saw, not me," he said. But my mother's eyes didn't leave his face, and the way she was pressing her lips together, you could tell she was not comfortable at all. I wanted to speak, but my mouth refused to open. Ibuka is just 10 years old, the stubborn last-born that likes to talk anyhow, but the thing he said was more than just normal talk. Red clothes, every night, by his window. Me, I'm the first son, and I've heard similar things in this town, but I never expected it to land in my own house like this. We continued eating, but the food had lost taste. Mama was forcing a smile, trying to distract everybody, telling Ibuka to stop watching too much film. Papa didn't talk again. He just bent his head and kept chewing slowly, like a man thinking deep. Even my younger sister Ada didn't touch her rice again. After dinner, Ibuka kept repeating it. "I saw you, Papa. I see you almost every night. Sometimes you smile, sometimes you just stand there, watching me with the red cloth in your mouth." He said it like he was sure, like he was even proud to say it. Mama told him to shut his mouth before he said nonsense again, but the damage was already done. So that night, I lay down on my bed in the next room, staring at the ceiling fan. My father's voice was quiet from the parlor, talking in low tune with Mama. I couldn't hear all the words, but her voice sounded shaky, like she was begging him for something. Papa kept telling her, "It's nothing. It's nothing." But if it was nothing, why did his voice sound like that? Before I closed my eyes, I went to Ibuka's room. He was already sleeping like nothing happened. So I went back to my room. I wanted to believe maybe it was truly a dream he had seen. Maybe a child's imagination. But deep down, I knew something had shifted in that house. And the worst part was that I saw my father pass the corridor that night. He stopped briefly by Ibuka's door before moving away. When Papa stopped at Ibuka's door that night and moved away quietly, something inside me refused to rest. Sleep did not agree with my eyes again. I turned from one side of my bed to the other, my ear sharp to every sound in the compound. The ceiling fan above me was turning slowly, squeaking like it wanted to reveal a secret, and my mind was scattered with questions I could not answer. The way Papa's footsteps dragged in the corridor, the way he stood for those few seconds at Ibuka's door, it kept replaying in my head. If truly it was only a dream, like he claimed, why would he be there at that exact spot? Why did Mama's voice sound like she was begging him earlier? And what was inside that nothing he kept repeating? I pushed my blanket away and sat upright on my bed. The air was heavy, like even the night was waiting for something to happen. From my room, I could hear small movements outside, soft like sand shifting under slippers. I held my breath and listened again. It wasn't my imagination. Somebody was moving near the window side of the house. Slowly, I stood and tiptoed to my own window, pulling the curtain just a little. The compound was dark, only faint light from the moon washing the backyard. I didn't see anybody, but I could feel it. Like when you enter a room and know you are not alone. My eyes searched around the cashew tree at the corner near the fence, but nothing stood. Only the rustling of leaves. I stayed like that for long minutes, my heart counting the seconds. At one point, I thought I saw a shadow pass by Ibuka's window, but it disappeared before I could be sure. I wanted to run there and shout, but fear pressed me down. I told myself to calm down. Maybe it was the breeze, maybe it was rat, maybe it was anything else. But something inside my chest said no, this is not just ordinary. By the time the first cock crowed, I had not closed my eyes. The house began to stir, Mama moving about in the kitchen, Ada sweeping the parlor, Ibuka still snoring like somebody that had no care in the world. I walked out to breathe small air, and as I passed Ibuka's window, something caught my eye. It was lying just under the window, half pressed into the sand, like somebody dropped it in a hurry. I bent and picked it up. The cloth was small, torn at the edges, and it was red. But not just red. One part of it was stiff, stained deep, like it had soaked something before. I stared at it, my hand trembling, then quickly folded it before anybody could see. Mama's voice came sharp behind me. "What is that in your hand?" I turned. She was standing by the kitchen door, her wrapper tied tightly, eyes fixed on me. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I opened my palm and showed her the cloth. She rushed quickly, snatched it from me, and without even looking long, she folded it and stuffed it inside her wrapper. "Don't talk about this thing outside," she whispered, her eyes darting left and right like somebody was listening. "You hear me? Don't let your father or anybody hear you mention it." I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to push her to explain, but the way she looked at me, the fear in her eyes, it silenced me. It was not just ordinary cloth. She knew what it was, and she was hiding it. All through breakfast, I kept watching Papa. He was calm, even humming one old song while eating yam. Ebuka was laughing and playing as if nothing happened. Ada was quiet, just picking her food, but Mama's hand was shaking slightly as she poured tea, her eyes not meeting Papa's. I could feel my suspicion growing like fire inside me. Papa's smile, Mama's fear, the red cloth in her wrapper. It was like I was living in another house, not the one I grew up in. I wanted to believe my father was innocent, but every sign was pointing the other way. After breakfast, Papa stood, stretched himself, and said he was going to see one friend. He left calmly, greeting the neighbors on his way out. Everything about him looked normal, but I knew it was not normal. Something was wrong. I waited until he left, then I followed Mama to the backyard. She was scrubbing pot by the tap, her back bent, her face sweating. I stood there watching her before I asked, "Mama, why are you hiding that cloth?" Her hand stopped for a second, then she continued scrubbing like she didn't hear me. I asked again, louder this time. She dropped the sponge, turned to me, and her eyes were red like she had been crying. "Chaik, leave this matter. Some things are better not spoken." "But Mama, Ebuka said he sees Papa every night with red cloth in his mouth. Now this one I picked. Is it true? Is Papa doing something?" Before I could finish, she covered my mouth with her wet hand, looking around like somebody might appear. "Don't ever ask me that again. If you love this family, don't talk. Pretend you didn't see anything." She picked the pot and walked inside quickly, leaving me outside with my heart burning. That was when I noticed something else. Just behind the cashew tree near the fence, the sand looked disturbed, like it had been dug and covered again in the night. I walked slowly towards it, each step heavy, the morning sun hot on my skin. When I reached the spot and bent down, I saw something sticking out from the sand. It was another piece of red cloth, and this one was bigger. The second piece of red cloth sticking out from the sand refused to leave my eyes. I bent down, touched it lightly, and quickly removed my hand as if the thing could burn me. My mind was shouting questions, but no answer was coming. Who buried it there? Why here, close to Ebuka's window? And why would Mama hide the first one inside her wrapper like a thief? That night, the whole family sat in the parlor watching one Yoruba movie that Papa brought back from his friend's shop. Everybody pretended to laugh at the funny parts, but I knew the laughter was fake. Mama's eyes were swollen like she had cried earlier. Ada was quiet as usual, and Papa's own laugh was too loud, almost as if he wanted to convince us he was happy. Ebuka, the small one that started all this matter, was still repeating his story like chorus, telling Ada and Mama how Papa came to his window again the previous night. "Ebuka, keep quiet before I flog you," Mama warned sharply, but the boy just folded his mouth and rested on the chair. I could see he wasn't lying. Later that night, when Papa had gone to bed, I called Ada and Ebuka into my room. I locked the door small and lowered my voice. "Listen, the two of you. We need to know if what Ebuka is saying is true. We cannot just be watching Papa every day and pretending." Ada frowned, hugging her wrapper to her chest. "Chaik, don't start what you cannot finish. You know Papa does not like nonsense talk." But I shook my head. "It's not nonsense, Ada. This thing is serious. I saw Papa by Ebuka's door that night. I also picked cloth from the ground, cloth that Mama quickly hid. Tell me it is not looking strange to you." Ada's face changed small. She didn't talk again, just looked down at her lap. Ibuka, the stubborn one, raised his hand like in school. Let us stay awake and catch him. If he comes again, we will see it with our eyes. I watched him for a long time, then nodded. Yes, that is what we will do. Nobody must hear this plan. We will stay awake together and watch. We agreed. My heart was heavy, but I knew it was the only way. When midnight came, I quietly tiptoed to Ibuka's room with Ada. We spread one wrapper on the floor and sat there, our backs against the wall. Ibuka lay on his bed, but his eyes were wide open. The room was dim, only small moonlight entering through the curtain. We waited. The house was silent except for Papa's deep snore from the other room. Sometimes Mama coughed lightly. Ada kept whispering prayers under her breath, her fingers tight around her rosary. Ibuka was too excited, turning his head every few seconds towards the window. Hours passed slowly. My eyes were hurting, but I refused to close them. Then, sometime after the second cockcrow, Ada suddenly gripped my arm. Her hand was cold. "Chike, look." I turned towards the window. There was a shadow standing outside, not moving, not shifting, just standing close like somebody watching. The shape was tall, broad like Papa. And in the faint moonlight, I thought I saw something red pressed against the mouth. Ada gasped. Ibuka sat up immediately, and my whole body froze. The shadow raised a hand slowly and tapped lightly on the glass. The tap on the glass echoed in my head like drumbeat. Ada's rosary nearly fell from her hand. Ibuka's mouth opened wide, but no sound came out. My own body refused to move. It was like my bones had turned to stone. The shadow outside stood still for a moment, then bent slightly, as if trying to peep inside. I wanted to shout, but no voice came out. The tapping came again, small and soft, but my heart was already thundering louder than the sound. Without thinking, I jumped up and rushed to the door. Ada grabbed my arm and hissed, "Chike, where are you going?" I pulled myself free. "We cannot just sit here like cowards. Let me see for myself." Before she could stop me, I opened the door quietly and slipped into the passage. The floor was cold under my feet, my ears sharp like I was hearing every single thing. The ticking of the wall clock, Papa's snore from their room, even the crickets outside. I pushed open the back door slowly. The night breeze entered sharp on my face. I looked towards the window, but the shadow was no longer there. I stepped further, scanning the yard. Everything was quiet. The moon was bright enough for me to see the small garden and the fence at the back. My eyes kept moving, searching. That was when I noticed something unusual close to the corner of the fence. A sack lying carelessly, like somebody dropped it in a hurry. I went closer. The sack looked dirty, stained, and tied at the mouth. I bent down, heart pounding. At first, I only wanted to look, but one stubborn part of me whispered to open it. I touched the rope and dragged it loose. Immediately the smell hit me, strong, sharp, like blood that had stayed too long. I covered my nose, but forced myself to peep inside. What I saw made my skin crawl. Red cloths. Plenty of them, all soaked, some still wet, some dried stiff. The smell was choking me. I dragged one out with shaking hand and spread it under the moonlight. It was stained badly, and as I sniffed it small, the scent was clear. It was goat blood. I staggered back. Why would Papa be hiding cloths like this? What was he using them for? Suddenly, I heard movement behind me. I turned sharply, thinking it was Ada or Ibuka, but nobody was there. I looked towards the window again, my heart jumping inside me. For 1 second, I thought I saw the same tall figure moving past the corner, but before I could confirm, it vanished. I quickly pushed the cloth back inside the sack and tied it again, my hands slippery with sweat. My legs wanted to run, but my brain was saying, "Wait, listen." I stood still, my eyes darting everywhere. That was when I noticed something else. Small feathers scattered close to the sack, like from a dead chicken. They were stained red, too. My stomach turned. I remembered Mama hiding the first cloth. I remembered Papa laughing too loud in the parlor, and now this sack full of blood-stained cloths. Nothing was making sense again. I carried the sack small, trying to move it, and realized it was heavier than it looked. Something hard was inside apart from the cloths. I bent down again and pressed the side. My fingers touched something like calabash. Before I could open it properly, footsteps sounded from the front yard. Slow, heavy steps. Someone was walking towards the back. My whole body went cold. I dropped the sack quietly and backed away. My eyes went straight to the small plantain tree where I could hide. The steps came closer. My ears told me clearly it was Papa. I crouched behind the tree, my breath trapped inside me. Papa appeared from the corner, carrying a lantern. His wrapper was tied high on his chest, and in his hand was something red, folded neatly. He walked straight to the sack and bent down, opening it. He touched the cloths one by one, checking them like a farmer checking yam. Then he pulled out the calabash I had felt earlier. He opened it, muttered some words I couldn't hear, and poured something dark on the ground. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but my legs refused. My head was spinning. I knew Ada and Ibuka were still waiting in the room, probably thinking I had been caught already. Papa covered the calabash again and pushed it back into the sack. He tied it neatly this time and lifted the whole sack with surprising strength. As he turned, his lantern light moved across the yard, and for a moment it brushed where I was hiding. I pressed myself hard against the tree, praying silently. Papa stopped. His head turned slowly towards where I was hiding, and for that moment I felt like my heart stopped. The lantern light brushed over the leaves, and I could see his eyes, sharp and searching. I pressed my body hard against the plantain tree, not even breathing properly. My mind kept saying, "If he sees me here, I'm finished." He stood there for a while, then suddenly hissed and turned away. I waited until he carried the sack and disappeared towards the bush path before I crawled out quietly, my whole body weak. By the time I entered the house, Ada and Ibuka were already sitting up, their eyes wide like people that had seen ghosts. Ada rushed to me and whispered fast, "Where did you go? We thought Papa caught you." I told them everything, the sack, the blood, the feathers, the red cloths, everything Papa did behind the house. Ibuka wanted to go and check himself, but I held him back. "Don't even try it. You want to die." That night, nobody slept again. We just sat together till morning, our ears waiting for any sound. When day finally came, I knew I couldn't keep it inside anymore.